This is fancy hardware. We can get a 1070 single slot. So this card, single slot, all copper heatsink inside. There's a little bit of aluminum. It's got an aluminum casing and all that. It's a shorter card. Same PCB as far as I can tell as the 1070 Mini OC that Galax and KFA2 also sell, or will also be selling. The card does not run at its full clock rate. It's supposed to be 1518 to 1708 megahertz. It does not. It runs at about 1580 if it's just set at the stock clock rate. And then if you give it a little bit more fan speed, if you give it a little bit more power, it'll creep up towards 1700. You can get it to stick at 1700, and you'll see some of that here in a bit. Okay, you're gonna do specs. Ryzen 7 1800X at 4.1 gigahertz locked all the way across the board, 8 cores. We got the GTX 1070 single slot. It's called the Katana, made by Galax. Currently only Asia only. Our motherboard is the MSI X370 X-Power Titanium Gaming, which is awesome. We love it. We've used it a lot for overclocking Ryzen. It's super stable. And we've got our Guile Evo X RGB RAM in there. Although right now it's just pulsing blue because it's plugged into the board. On the card right now, dual link DVI-D, HDMI 2.0, and we've got a DisplayPort 1.4a. That's what you get for having a single slot. 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 made by Micron on this card at 2002 megahertz. Temperatures on all its tests were 82 degrees Celsius, just locked across. That's as hot as it runs, that's as hot as it gets. Will not go any higher, will not go any lower. Even if you crank up the fan speed, it'll be 82. Just because it'll keep boosting up the clock rate, because NVIDIA. On to our benchmarks. Oh, so fancy. We got new color sticky notes and paper. Well, it'll go into a spreadsheet. You can look at it on the website later on. Witcher 3, we're gonna start here at 4K, 38 FPS average, with our frame times of 26 milliseconds, and a 1% of 33 frames per second. Shadow of Mordor, 4K, 37 average FPS, 26 milliseconds frame time, and 30 FPS 1% low. Arma 3, 39 FPS average, 25 milliseconds frame time, and 27 FPS low, 1%. Doom, yeah, we brought Doom back, 53 FPS average, 19 milliseconds frame time, and 1% is a 45 FPS. We ran 3D Mark, Firestrike, just standard Firestrike, didn't do Extreme or Ultra. Overall score of 15,623, and a graphics score of 17,985, which is pretty appreciably below a standard GTX 1070. It's about 3 or 4% below. And it makes sense because the card's only running at about 1500 megahertz on average, but in 3D Mark, it does boost up to 1873, which again, a little bit lower than some cards. Here's the special thing about this card. We can't overclock it because it's already thermal limited and power limited. But if we give it some more fan speed, and we give it a little bit more on the thermal limit, raising it from 82 degrees Celsius thermal limit to 85 degrees Celsius thermal limit, and we gave it a custom fan speed that brought it up to about 76, 75%, we actually got some of our clock rate back, and we're starting to hit our boost clock of 1708. So we have results for that as well. At our custom fan speed and at max turbo, close to max turbo as we can get. We're actually running at 1760 in most of these benchmarks. Witcher 3, 41 FPS, 24 milliseconds frame time, and 36 1% low. Shadow of Mordor, 39 FPS, 25 milliseconds frame time, 1 down, and 31 low. In Arma 3, 46 FPS, nice big boost there, 21 milliseconds frame time, and 35 1% low. In Doom, 69 FPS, another huge boost, 14 milliseconds frame time, and 50 FPS 1% low. And then we didn't bother with 3D Mark because it was already running at full clock rate. Most people will be asking, because they haven't seen a single slot card since, well, the 8800 GT, although Galax did try to bring a 460 single slot and nobody bought it. What do you use this card for? What are you gonna buy this for? Well, if you have an ITX system, and it's a very cramped ITX system, you might have noticed that your fan on your dual slot card is right up against the side of the case. Well, you put this in there and you give it some breathing room. You also open up your secondary slot for anything. I don't know, put a USB port in there, put expanded audio, do whatever you like. If you use the PCI Express bifurcation, you'll be able to split off your PCI Express lane and have X8 to your graphics card and X8 to, well, another PCI Express device if you like. You can have another graphics card. SLI in an ITX system. Whoa! For all the people who still use SLI. Your other options are if you're the kind of person who buys big server boards that have nothing but PCI Express lanes all one by one, and you need lots of compute and you don't want to shell out the amount of money it takes to get single slot quadros that already run at a lower clock rate, you can pick up a bunch of these. toss them all into your single slot spacing and have 9, 7, however many PCI Express slots you have of just compute cards or miners or whatever. Maybe you're an Ethereum miner, maybe you're mining Zcash. Not actually a bad option. If you want to run this in silent mode, it does downclock a bit. You can just keep the clock rate down at about 1500 and keep the fan speed at about 50%, or well, 40% is its minimum. So about 50% is pretty quiet. And you can just stack these things in one by one by one by one and have a bunch of them if you really want to. All right, guys, that was our look at the Galax GTX 1070 Katana. Tell us in the comments what you would use this card for. If you ever came to America, what would you buy it for? What would you put it to use on? I mean, you a miner, who knows? Off onto the side here, please subscribe if you haven't. Check down below. We have plenty of links for cool stuff. Check out a shirt. Please come to Epic Pants and buy a shirt, and also stop buying Apple products, for God's sake. Watch other videos, check out the links below, and be scared of my nose, it's massive.